Hello. Fala Mogulis. Jack and Hagar gave me this.
No one here by that name.
Please. I crossed the narrow sea. I have nowhere else to go.
You have everywhere else to go.
But wait!
Well met, box-dwelling imps and pigeon killers, and welcome to Game of Microphones. I'm Lord Sterling, Sir Duncan the Devastator.
And I'm Lady Rachel of House Fox, Archmaester of Making Dinners.
And this is episode 84.
On this episode of our series Rewatch, we're covering Game of Thrones, Season 5, Episode 2, The House of Black and White.
And in case you're not already aware, this series Rewatch is from the perspective of someone who's current on the show. That means you've seen up through Season 7. So if not, there's still time to get sentenced to be beheaded by the woman who freed you from a life of slavery, your mother. Or beheaded after being confused for an escaped dwarf convict from death row. So you don't have to hear these spoilers.
Warning.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
This was a good episode.
Fuck yeah. So much going on in this one. What stood out to you?
I had trouble actually picking a top 5 because I actually had kind of like a top 7, to be honest. We got to see a lot of characters this episode. And
true.
We get to see Bravos for the first time. And
the moment of truth arrived where we almost got to see if the Titan was as colossal as it could be.
I totally thought of that when she was going under it. I was like, Duncan's probably looking for his dick.
I actually more was laughing at how we probably would be looking at his dick or for his dick, and I totally forgot to actually look.
I looked and didn't. It's pretty dark, so yeah. I don't know. I didn't see it.
Classic.
Yeah, so I have a fairly decent top 5, and then I have a decent amount of notes as well.
Nice. How about you start right off with your number 5?
Okay, so my number 5 is the Cozy Box.
Yes. He's a box dweller, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
You just can't escape them.
I loved how drunk he is. He's like looking in his wine glass and he goes, "There's a bug."
Right. Yes, best be careful. You might accidentally consume some solid food.
Yes, get a little protein in that body.
So funny. And then he harkens back to how he said, "Can I drink myself to death on the road to Marine?" Because he says, "When I agreed to come with you, did I misrepresent my intentions?"
Yeah,
drinking himself to death on the road. Hilarious.
Totally. So he talks to Varys about getting out of this box, and he wants to get outside and take a walk. And Varys is basically like, "No, you have to stay in this box. Like, Cersei has offered a lordship to the man who brings her your head."
Fuck.
And I loved Tyrion's response was, "She ought to offer her cunt, the best part of her for the best part of me."
Yeah.
I just loved that.
Classic line for sure.
So Varys reveals that they're actually headed for Volantis.
Ah, yes.
And Tyrion's like, "I thought we were going to Marine." And he goes, the road to Marine basically starts in Volantis. And they have their amazing little banter back and forth, and they're talking about rulers. And to Tyrion's point, you know, everyone has already got a ruler.
Yeah. Every
And
little
so he's
pile of
just like
shit has a banner hanging from it.
And so he's just being like a pessimist. You know, he's just being kind of poopy about the whole thing.
Right, he just thinks it's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, and to Varys's point, you know, he goes, you were quite good, you know, at ruling.
Right. He was.
And he really was. And
Superstar.
Tyrion, in his you know, kind of drunken depression, I guess you could say, he goes, I managed to kill a lot of people.
Yeah, that's true. And depression is an appropriate word. You get more of a sense of it in the books just because you're getting everything from Tyrion's perspective. But one of the things that he keeps saying in his head over and over is, "Where do whores go?" Because he in the books, when he kills Tywin, he asks, like, whatever happened to Tysha, his his first wife, and Tywin's response when he asks where she went is, "Wherever whores go." You know, so he's like kind of, it's like he's like a broken record. His mind keeps skipping over this thing where he's like trying to figure out what happened to Tysha, and he just keeps asking everybody that he meets, "Where do whores go?" And they're like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" It's pretty funny.
Yeah, absolutely. So they kind of continue on their conversation, and Tyrion goes, "I liked it. Power, even as a servant." You know, then they go, you know, people follow leaders, but they'll never follow us. They find us repulsive. And Tyrion responds, "I find us repulsive."
Yeah. Yep.
And to Varys's point, I loved this line. And we find them repulsive, which is why we surround ourselves with large, comfortable boxes to keep them away.
Yep.
And yet, no matter what we do, people like you and me are never really satisfied inside the box. Not for long.
Yeah. The gravity of the end of that sentence didn't really hit me when I was watching, because I was so focused on, they find us repulsive, and I find us repulsive, and then we find them repulsive. And I just thought that was like, you know, kind of so funny that I missed the second half where it really like ties it all together and puts it in perspective of the box that they're in right there.
Yeah. And it's a very true statement. You know, they have their little boxes, they're, you know, comfortable in them, but they're just not satisfied with, I think to Varys's point here, he's no longer satisfied with kind of being under the radar. You know,
yeah.
he's going to Dany. He's had this plan for, you know, I would think probably a few years now.
Yeah.
You know, and Tyrion, you know, killing Tywin propelled him to actually go meet Dany. So I think that's where, like, he goes, you know, we're never really satisfied inside the box, not for long, meaning like I'm kind of ready to reveal my hand, if you will.
Yep, definitely. Ready to go take this war hot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty epic.
Yeah, so that is my number 5.
Nice.
What's your number 5?
Little boxes on the hillside. You know that song?
Yes, I do, because I love weeds.
They're all made out of ticky tacky.
A grass stick.
Yeah, I don't know, when you were talking about all these boxes that they're in, and it just made me think of that.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's see. My number 5 is Jon Stark of Winterfell.
Okay, yes.
Which is a pretty epic moment. Jon ends up being in front of Stannis for killing Mance. And Stannis is kind of pissed about it. He's like, "I ordered Mance Rayder burned at the stake, and he prevented that order from being carried out." You know, and he's saying that the king's word is law. And he has a good line saying, "Perhaps you should ask Sir Davos how much mercy I show to lawbreakers."
Yeah, and I love how he had his little nubbins, like, hanging over his sword.
Yeah, perfect. And he goes on to say, show too much kindness, people won't fear you. If they don't fear you, they don't follow you. And that sort of reminded me of the way that Tywin rules, where he thought his father Titus was too focused on trying to make people like him, and everybody just kind of walked all over him. So Tywin is all about ruling through fear and making people follow him by use of fear. So it's kind of Tywin-ish here. And this also hints sort of that Stannis is actually kind of kind underneath, and that he doesn't want to have to punish Jon, because he's like, you show too much kindness and people won't fear you. So he seems like kind of reluctant to have to punish Jon, but he's like, I kind of have to. Like,
yeah, he does. So it's interesting with Stannis. We've made the comparison of Tywin and Stannis in previous episodes as well, about kind of their thought process on killing the few to save the many versus doing it the honorable way and killing many to kill, like, just for killing
for whatever
sake.
the goal is.
Yeah, so they are similar creatures in that standpoint.
And interestingly, Stannis's sentiment here of making people fear you, otherwise they won't follow you, is sort of is rubbed off and illustrated by Dany's decision later in the episode to execute the guy publicly to make people fear the rule of law, basically.
Yeah.
And in her case, it backfires wildly.
Yes.
I mean, if I guess if your whole system of ruling is already based on love, which hers has been, freeing people, saving people, etc., start to try to incorporate fear, and they're like, what the fuck is this all about?
They'll start hissing at you, basically.
Yeah, totally. Pretty funny.
Yeah.
So Jon's like, listen, with respect, the free folk are never going to follow you. I'm sorry, you burned their king. It's just not going to happen. And Stannis is like, who then? You? And he does end up kind of being made a leader, and later in this episode, interestingly, not of the wildlings, but Stannis has a funny change of conversation here where he changes the topic. Do you know this wretched girl, Lyanna Mormont?
That was awesome.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that it was the Lord Commander Mormont's niece, but of course it is. So since we all know who Lyanna Mormont is and how powerful a little lady she is, this moment is just so funny. He calls her wretched. Yeah. It's so funny. A child of 10. So classic.
That's crazy. So she's only 10 in this episode. So when we actually meet her, she can't be more than like maybe 12 or 13. Yeah. So she's really young. I mean,
the
super young.
Is like, got to be like 11 or something.
Wow, that's crazy.
I don't know. She looks really young, though, She doesn't look like 13.
No, she doesn't. Or, like, she might be a little older, because she's such a good actress that, like, Maisie Williams looks really young, too.
True. Yeah, you can never tell these days.
I know. They do such a great job. Like, I want their makeup artist to make me look young.
Oh, man. So yeah, that's pretty funny. She's so stubborn and just like, why we know no king other than the king in the north, whose name is Stark. And Jon has to kind of laugh as he points out that the Northerners can be a bit like the Free Folk, stubborn, loyal, rugged, and not really controllable. And Stannis agrees, sort of chuckles about how Robert would go on often and loudly about how difficult it was to control them, even with Ned Stark's help, acting as sort of the Warden of the North. Yeah,
I found that was a great line for sure.
Yeah, pretty funny. So even with the leader of the North trying to ease relations with the southern kingdoms, it was still a pain in the ass. And Dorne is even more difficult. They're never really in the fold per se. They still have princes down there,
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is crazy. So we learn that the Night's Watch is going to be electing a new Lord Commander later that night, and they're pretty convinced Alliser Thorne is going to win. And so Stannis is basically like, well, what the fuck is going to happen to you if Thorne wins? Because he thinks you're a traitor.
You need to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. And he mentions also that his bravery has made Alistair look weak, and he'll punish you for it. I don't punish men for bravery. I reward them. And I thought it was fucking hilarious how he was like selling himself in that moment to Jon, like, totally. Join me and we can rule the galaxy. It's just so funny. Most enthusiasm he's showed about pretty much anything. Trying to get Jon on his side.
Which is kind of interesting from a perspective of Jon Snow's presence with all of these people, because actually Sam even brings this up in this episode where, Mormont saw something great in him. Now we've all seen it.
Oh, that's such a great moment.
Stannis, I think Stannis feels it with Jon. He's like, I want you on my team, basically. Because
and we know Melisandre feels it too.
Yeah, so it's very telling to the unspoken energy that people have when you come around them, that Jon has a very particular energy that is desirable for many different people with extremely different personalities. So he's really special.
Yeah,
he's amazing,
cool.
Okay?
And the ovaries all swelled.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's great. That's funny, man. So he's like, listen, yeah, it sounds cool, the opportunity to work with you, but I can't, I pledged my life, my honor, and my sword to the Night's Watch. He's like, I don't know what I have left to give you. And that's when it gets real. Stannis is like, you can give me the North. And he's like, I can't, even if I wanted to, I'm a bastard. A Snow. And then, kneel before me, lay your sword at my feet. And the camera cuts to Jon Snow's face as he's reacting to this. Stannis goes on, pledge me your service, and you'll rise again as Jon Stark, Lord of Winterfell. And it's like one of the most brutal moments in the show. It's like so sad because it's all Jon ever wanted, but he can't accept it without giving up what it would mean to be a Stark, to be honorable and to keep your vows and your word. So he doesn't really have a choice. Like, he couldn't do this and be Jon Stark and still be worthy of the name in his own mind,
Completely.
It would be a Pyrrhic victory, essentially, a victory at too great a cost, the cost of his honor, to achieve his goal of getting his father's name. So naturally, he has to turn him down. And this really is a crazy moment because Stannis is basically telling him, listen, they think you're a traitor. The new power structure is going to kill you. And he gives Jon an out, saying, I'll make you Lord of Winterfell, just join me. And Jon chooses death over dishonor here. Damn, that's powerful.
Yeah.
And he he goes on to explain that to Sam, and sort of just walks away. He says, I swore a vow to the Night's Watch. If I don't take my own word seriously, what sort of Lord of Winterfell would that be? And just kind of walks away, and Sam's like, oh, because he was so excited for him.
Yeah, I loved his line. It's the first thing I ever remember wanting.
Yeah.
I would daydream about my dad, going to Robert Baratheon and never again being the bastard of Winterfell.
Yeah.
And we know that this has been a sore spot for Jon the entire series because, one of his first lines when they have the direwolf puppies is, I'm not a Stark.
Right.
And he's always kind of like lived in that shadow. He's always kind of had a chip on his shoulder. We see it when they're hosting the king at Winterfell and he's outside beating the shit out of that dummy bag thing because he's angry that he can't be in there because, being a bastard, it would offend the king as like, his presence basically.
Yeah. So there you go. That shows you how offensive it was to Cersei when Oberyn brought Arya to Joffrey's wedding.
Yes. Oh, that's so true. I didn't even. That's why she was kind of being. Well, she's always being snotty, but that makes a little bit more sense too.
And there's the main influence on Ned, which was Catelyn Stark, who was never stoked about Jon because she considered a bastard a threat to her own true-born son's rights to ascension of the throne, like their or not the throne, but the lordship of Winterfell. their place in the what's the word I'm looking for here? Succession. There you go. So if Catelyn wasn't like nagging at Ned about like, why do you keep your bastard here, etc., I wonder if he would have asked King Robert to naturalize Jon or give him the
Stark name.
Yeah,
maybe.
But then again, he knows that it's his sister's son, so maybe he wouldn't.
Maybe he felt it was safer for Jon to always be a Snow.
Maybe,
and not have the Stark name just in case people ever speculated, the fact that Ned didn't naturalize him, knowing that information, like it could be used as ammunition for Ned to say, if he were my sister's son, I would give him the Stark name. I would have naturalized him. Right.
Is that the right word, naturalize? I know I said it before, but I'm like, I can't remember what the right word is for me.
I have it down that that he
legitimize.
Would be given legitimize. Well, yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
That's right. That's better.
My bad.
No, that's okay. That's okay. So we know that this has been with him a long time, this sentiment of being a Stark.
Yeah.
So what Stannis is offering him, it's like everything he's ever wanted served up to him. And so I had a question. So the Night's Watch, they take a vow for life, but if Stannis is the king and he wants Jon to be Lord of Winterfell, does the king have the authority to release a Night's Watchman from his vows?
I don't think so. The Night's Watchmen are sort of like beyond the king's justice at that point. Like once you take the vows, you're sort of like out of the jurisdiction of the king, kind of, I believe.
I don't know. That kind of confuses me a little bit, because like, how could Stannis really, give his word to make him a Stark? And then when we see in episode 1, the deserter of the Night's Watch is killed by Ned Stark. He's not killed by the Night's Watch. So right. I think there's maybe a little bit of gray area that maybe you could speculate.
Yeah, I guess it's known in the Seven Kingdoms. It's law that if you're a deserter of the Night's Watch, the punishment is death. So whoever catches you is probably responsible for that.
Got it.
But it's interesting, one door closes and another door opens, right? Like Jon he's so like just shocked that he's offered the option to become Jon Stark, and then he's just like probably shattered that he has to turn it down, But just as he is giving up this great opportunity, another opportunity is thrust at his feet for him to rise to power in another fashion, a legitimate fashion for him that he earned, that doesn't involve like reneging on his honor, essentially. And it comes when Sam nominates him to be the Lord Commander of Night's Watch. I'm sure we'll get to that later on.
Yes, that's actually my number 4.
Perfect. Yeah. So yeah, I just thought it was really cool that after everything, Jon gets the opportunity to become Jon Stark, and he turns it down, something that like only Ned Stark would do,
Yeah, honorable.
Yeah, epic. So let's move on to your number 4, right?
Yeah, so it's actually perfect, because my number 4 is the 998th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch.
Nice.
So we kind of get some dialogue about, we discover that it's the 998th selection of the Lord Commander. So that's a lot of Lord Commanders over the years.
Yeah, it's a fuck ton.
I mean, considering that most of them probably are Lord Commander for a decent amount of time, I'm sure that there's been few that perish early or die young because of the nature of what they do, but that is a clear way of showing the audience how freaking long the Night's Watch has been in service.
Right. And what was we learned that the youngest Night's Watch Lord Commander ever to be elected was named Osric Stark?
Yes, so it was
who
Stark.
10. Yeah, and maybe that's what gave Sam the impetus to say, well, Osric was young. Jon's pretty young too. Maybe, and he's basically a Stark. Like, maybe this is just meant to be,
Meant to be.
I also thought it was hilarious how Gilly called him Ostrich Stark.
Totally. So we kind of get the political speeches about Sir Alistair. Janos Slint, says he was the acting commander when the wildlings raided. He's been at the wall almost his entire life. He's a, tried and true ranger. He's the only true choice. And then someone stands up for Sir Dennis Mallister. Mm-hmm. He's been around a long while as well, and he is the commander of the Shadow Tower and has helped, keep the wildlings at bay for a really long time.
Remember, we saw him last episode too.
Yeah, and we've heard about him a couple of times when they're talking about who the next Lord Commander is. I think.
Yep.
I think Janos Slint talks to Alistair about him, saying that that's kind of like your main competition.
Yep.
So then Sam is like, the camera's kind of darting in and out, and
he
Sam
keeps looking like he wants to talk,
Yeah, he's anxious, and he's like trying to figure out, like, should I do it now? Should I do it now?
Right.
Should I do it now?
Exactly.
And then he goes, Maester Aemon.
Yeah, it's almost too late. Maester Aemon is like getting the tokens all set up, explaining which one's going to be for which, and then he like juts in, like interjects finally.
And everyone looks at him. So.
Oh, and right before Sam starts explaining when they're like making fun of him, Jon is looking at him like, no, don't
Shut
do
the
it,
fuck
Sam. Yeah. So funny, the reluctant hero,
Yeah, he's like, don't do it. I don't really want to be that,
Yep.
But he is going to be.
Sam the Slayer, another wildling lover just like his friend Jon Snow.
Yeah, and I love that Slint's kind of making fun of Sam, and Sam's just like, fuck you, dude.
Yep.
Yeah, her name is Gilly. You know her quite well. You cowered together during the raid.
Yep, hid in the larder.
In the larder. And then he goes, a wildling girl, a baby, and Lord Janos. I found him there after the battle in a puddle of his own making.
So classic. He just rocked that scene.
Yeah, and basically this is mainly my number 5 here is Sam's speech. And he goes, while Lord Janos was hiding with the women and the children, Jon Snow was leading.
Mm-hmm.
Sam continues, Sir Alistair fought bravely, it's true, but when he was wounded, it was Jon who saved us. He took charge of the wall's defense. He killed the Magnar of the Thens.
Damn.
He went north to deal with Mance, knowing almost certainly it meant his own death. Before that, he led the mission to avenge Lord Commander Mormont. Mormont himself chose Jon to be his steward, and he saw something in Jon.
And at that moment, Jon's eyes close in like a beautiful bit of direction and acting where he seems to be like coming to grips with his destiny and reluctantly accepting that this may be the path that has been laid out before him to take the command of the Night's Watch. Just a really, really good moment there.
Yeah,
he saw something
absolutely.
in Jon and his eyes just like clenched shut and he's deep in thought. Really cool moment.
Yeah. And so he goes, Mormont himself chose him to be his steward. He saw something in him. Now we've all seen it too. He may be young, but he is the commander we turned to when the night was darkest.
Yes.
And I thought that could maybe be kind of a foreshadow to season 8.
Oh, man.
Because obviously winter is here.
Yeah.
And the long night is coming.
Yep.
And we find out that Jon is actually technically the rightful king of the Seven Kingdoms.
Oh my God.
We find that out in season 7. Yep. Or, we speculated it for a long time, but we actually get confirmation.
A marriage.
And now, people, like we were just talking about, people kind of gravitate towards Jon, and I'm thinking maybe that's a little bit of a foreshadow that people are gonna, that the kingdoms are gonna turn to Jon Snow to save them all.
Oh man, that's a great idea. A cool foreshadow. I could see it happening too.
Me too.
Even Dany could be like, take Drogon, you know, or something crazy like that.
Yeah, well, I think Dany may die, sadly. I have a feeling Dany's possibly going to die.
Yeah.
And I think she's going to die in childbirth. I know I've gone into that a little bit, but I think she's going to get pregnant and she's going to die in childbirth.
I could see it happening.
And then so Jon, like, they don't have to compete with each other as far as, like, who gets the throne between the two of them. Like,
right.
It's just taken out. I have a feeling many of our favorite characters are going to die.
Yeah, probably.
Season.
Although they wouldn't necessarily have to compete with each other to, you know, take the throne.
That's true.
They could rule as two kings, you know, or king and queen. But
yeah, that's
like
true.
Tenacious D. You know, we lead as two kings or something.
We'll lead as two kings.
Yeah, so, you know, Sam's speech is very powerful. People are cheering and Jon kind of smirks, and then Alistair stands up and is basically like, yeah, but, you know, what side does Jon really fight for? I mean, who would have known if Stannis didn't raid Mance? Like, what would have happened in that tent, you know, basically implying that Jon's a traitor, you know, and he makes a fair argument from a perspective of someone who hates the wildlings, like Alistair does, and many of the Night's Watchmen. Do you want to choose a man who has fought the wildlings all his life, or a man who makes love to them?
Yeah, it's so brutal.
And it's, you know, it's not true, because Jon was always... He always had loyalty to the Night's Watch, even though he got to know the wildlings and he did fall in love. But that's...
Right.
He left Ygritte for his vows.
Right. And Sam could have even, like, added this whole thing into the into his little speech there. You know, he led the thing to save Lord Commander, or to avenge Lord Commander Mormont. He fought at the battle at the Castle Black, and he's the commander we turned to when the night was darkest. He risked his life and infiltrated the wildling horde to gain critical information and intel about how there's 100,000 of them, and to come back with their plans, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that was so critical. You know, it's just another selling point for Jon, basically. But yeah, of course, Alistair has to just poo-poo all over it, and he's sort of doing the Littlefinger thing here, just sowing seeds of doubt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which we'll get more into later, talking about Littlefinger.
Yeah, so I like the way they cast their votes. They, you know, get their little tokens and they put them in those clay pots.
And one of those guys, I swear, was Lord Richard of House Horsfield. But then I realized Lord Richard, our listener, he's a lord, so he couldn't be one of the Night's Watchmen.
Oh, got it. Yeah, so we get that there is a tie between Alistair and Jon. And I love that Maester Aemon is the tiebreaker.
Yes.
And I love that he chooses Jon.
Think about it. It's a Targaryen voting for another Targaryen.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even think about that. That's so awesome.
I just realized it right now.
That's awesome.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Yeah. And so everyone like jumps up and cheers, like, Jon Snow, Jon Snow. And I'm like, yeah, he won. And like you were just saying, you know,
ovaries explode
everywhere, all through the land. I found it really funny that in the scene before this, he turned down lordship at Winterfell and immediately became the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch.
Yeah, exactly. One door closes, another opens.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
So yeah, that is my number 4.
Good things come to those who wait.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. My number 4 is Badass Brienne.
Yes. Okay. This is my number 2.
All right. So let's collab on it.
Cool.
Basically, it starts out with Pod and Brienne. and their Podrick has not abandoned her. He's taken the verbal whoopings and stays by her side. And he's trying to be positive. Must be good food if it's crowded, And, I was bummed out that we didn't get more hot pie, but it's obviously a different tavern.
I like that Pod likes the little tavern wench. She's like staring her up and down, smirking at her, and he's like looking at her butt as she walks away.
I didn't notice it, and that's why he's looking over when she's talking to Littlefinger, probably, and that's how he realized it.
Mm-hmm. He's kind of leaning around Brienne to get like one last look at her butt.
It's great. So he things get serious when he realizes that it's Littlefinger over there, basically. And we had just learned that he had a marriage proposal accepted, and Sansa thinks that it was another marriage proposal for himself, so she doesn't know that she's being married off to Ramsay yet.
Well, he's deceiving in this moment because he says, my marriage proposal has been accepted.
Right.
Mine.
Right.
I thought that was really a curious...
Well, it was his proposal, not his marriage. So it could be looked at, either grammatically, he was very slick about it, like you were saying.
Yeah. So it throws Sansa off because she when the way he said it, it's like, well, my marriage proposal was accepted. And so I would assume that if I were Sansa, that he's talking about himself. Right.
Yeah, that's what you'd think. A proposal for his next marriage.
Yes.
But in reality, it's just his proposal. It's going to be her marriage. It's hilarious.
Exactly. So we can tell that he's very clever with grammar to throw people off, but not technically be wrong in that situation.
Right. Definitely. Yep. He's very slick. So, is it Sansa who orders some ale here?
The girl comes over and offers them ale, and Sansa just I'll have some.
Yeah, interesting, because she doesn't drink, but I guess she sort of picked it up after dealing with Cersei a bit. And we have that sort of interesting interaction where Peter asks her how it tastes, and she's like, I don't understand why people drink this. And he's like, it makes, some men feel powerful. Or it gives some men courage, right?
Courage.
She asks him, well, does it give you courage? Which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But Pod is checking out the serving girl's booty, like you said, and sees, oh shit, Littlefinger's over there with Sansa, and so he tells Brienne, he's like, Brienne, don't look, but Sansa's over there, and she's talking with Littlefinger. And
she dyed her hair.
Yeah,
but it's her. It's
definitely her, and he would know because obviously his old boss Tyrion was married to her, right? So it's not like he was like up close to Sansa. He would recognize.
No, he got just a very quick profile view of her face as she was getting her ale poured, and I think before this though is when Sansa says to Littlefinger, my mom always used to say, dark wings, dark words.
Yep, yeah. An old saying. Inaccurate in this case.
Yeah, I find it interesting because Littlefinger plays it off like his marriage proposal has been accepted, and he goes, not in this case, but in reality, for Sansa, it is dark words because...
You're right.
She has to marry Ramsay Bolton, who we all know what happens with that situation. So again, he's playing her, and I don't think Littlefinger knows what a psychopath Ramsay is. I mean, he might have an idea that
he claims he doesn't know later, at least.
A little off. Yeah, he might just have heard some stories, but the stories were probably about his enemies or trying to gather information, not about doing it to women, like abusing women. So a part of me thinks that Littlefinger may have had an idea, but not to what extent.
It'd be pretty fucked up if he had a real good idea and he still went through with it. So hopefully you're right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like giving Littlefinger the benefit of the doubt, but
right.
In this situation, there really isn't much to go on. I don't think Littlefinger would know about him hunting Tansy down with Miranda in the forest. like stuff like that. But I'm
Right.
sure he's heard about Ramsay doing what he did to Theon Greyjoy and what he did at Moat Cailin with the Ironborn and stuff like that. So
Right.
he may know that he's a dark person, but I don't think he realizes that he goes as far as to like
He's
manipulate.
like a sadist rapist.
Yeah, like a rapist, exactly.
Yeah.
So
So Pod's like, a bunch of knights with them, and Brienne's like,
bunch?
what the fuck is a bunch? Like, god damn it, are you talking about 6? Are you talking about 20? 10, I think. So he can tell that Bran's about to take action, and he's like, too many, this isn't a good idea, you know, and she's just like, ready the horses. He's like, we only have one horse, find more. The line always makes me laugh.
find more. I love how she says Littlefinger too, and when he's like she's with Lord Peter Baelish, and she's like Littlefinger.
Yeah, true. Yep, that's funny. So then Bran goes over to confront the both of them, and Lord Baelish, Lady Sansa, my name is Brienne of Tarth. And Baelish remembers her and starts off by sort of complimenting her, saying, what did you say about you? Your loyalty came free of charge. And then obviously turns it into something else by saying, someone appears to have paid quite a bit for it since then.
Yeah,
You know?
so he's already putting like a seed of doubt in Sansa's mind that she's kind of a flippant, like...
Right, exactly. First he casts doubt on her loyalty.
Exactly.
Right. And then it goes on from there. She takes a knee, Brienne, all serious, totally serious, and 110% business, Before your mother's death, I was her sworn sword. I gave my word I would find you and protect you. I will shield your back and keep your counsel, and even give my life for you if it needs be. I swear it by the old gods and the new.
She's so serious in this.
Yeah, so serious. And Sansa just is speechless, doesn't even know how to react.
They're like, what the fuck?
So
and
then yeah.
Lord Baelish is like, we don't need to be that formal.
Right, yeah. And then he just continues to sow more seeds of doubt about everything and try to make her look as ridiculous as he could. So he's like, strange. First time, I knew Kat since we were children. She never mentioned you. So first he casts doubt on the truth. And she's like, it was after Renly's murder. And then he's like, yes, you were accused of killing him. So then he casts doubt on her honor.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I tried to save him, but you were accused. Well, by men who did not see what happened, and he's like totally setting her up. Well, what did happen?
And she's like, fuck.
Yeah, this casts doubt on her sanity.
Yeah.
She pauses knowing that the truth makes her look fucking kind of crazy. But eventually she's like, he was murdered by a shadow with the face of Stannis, Baratheon,
And Sansa's like, what the fuck?
And Baelish is just hamming it up. A shadow with a face, and he's just like, rubbing it in like how crazy it sounds. This woman swore to protect Renly. She failed. She swore to protect your mother. She failed. As he casts doubt then on her capabilities. And so he's just casting down on everything. Loyalty, honor, the truth, her capabilities, everything that he can. Her sanity. Just poisoning the well extremely. And then he's like, why the fuck would I want somebody with your history of failure guarding my lady Sansa, my lady? And she's like, who the fuck are you again? Like, why do you have any say in this at all? And Baelish sort of says, now we're family, I married
I'm
her
uncle.
Yeah, married her aunt. I'm her uncle. And
you're
an
outsider.
Yeah, exactly. Forgive me, Lady Brienne, but experience has made me wary of outsiders. And so now he's saying something that he knows that Sansa will relate to, something that triggers the fears from her recent misfortunes and all this terrible shit that's happened to her, and having her family be betrayed by outsiders like the Boltons, who were responsible for slaughtering her mother and her brother, and everything that's happened basically. So yeah. Sansa's like,
Yeah, I saw you at the wedding. I saw you bowing to the king.
Right, and Bran's like, can we just, have a word alone? It kind of remind me of Jorah talking to Barristan, and he's like, well, I just want to talk to Dany alone. He's like, no, you're never going to be alone with her again, you know? And Sansa here is like, no, not happening. We're not going to be alone. I think you should basically leave, you know?
And, you know, Brienne also says, after Sansa said, you know, I saw you bowing to the king, she goes, neither of us wanted to be there.
True.
You know, sometimes we don't have a choice. And Sansa says, and sometimes we do, basically saying to Brienne, I am choosing, like, to not go with you.
Yeah. It's too bad.
Like, I didn't have a choice to not be at that wedding, but I have a choice right now to not go with you.
It's too bad Sansa doesn't know, like, everything that Brienne knows, because otherwise I think she'd be really excited to have Brienne on her team.
For sure.
Same thing with Arya, too. It just worked out terribly for Brienne with both of them.
I know. I was trying to figure out why she cut all the horses loose and, like, bumped into those guys. Like, what purpose did that serve?
I think that basically what Baelish was really hinting at by saying, oh, we don't want our new friend wandering the countryside alone. You know, basically saying, spreading word that Sansa Stark is, you know, up here, who's wanted. He's basically giving the heads up to his guys, like, we need to take control of Brienne and probably kill her.
That's what I was kind of thinking too, but I still wasn't really sure, because I know that they kind of step in front of her like they're not going to let her through.
Yeah.
And that's...
The man asked you to stay, yeah.
And I mean, like, letting the horses go so they can't chase her and Pod.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
I love those writing scenes in this this part of the episode. They are really well done.
Nice.
Definitely body doubles on most of the people. And they do kind of CGI Podrick's face onto one of them. I watched it in slow motion.
That's funny.
They also do that to Jaime Lannister when he rides his horse up the steps.
Oh, I love that part. That's so cool.
Yeah, if you watch his head and his neck, he looks kind of like a bobblehead. And it's because they
superimposition,
basically, like, superimposed his face onto a body.
That's great.
And it reminded me, so I did dressage for a really long time, but for fun, my horse was really, really good at jumping. She was actually bred to be a jumper.
Nice.
And I just kind of changed her into a dressage horse. So I would do cross-country jumping with her, and this scene totally reminded me of how fun that used to be.
Nice.
Like, you literally go out into this country, and it's a course, like, built into, like, the wilderness, and you jump over logs and streams and rivers and, like, holes in the ground, and I mean, shit that doesn't fall down when you knock on it. You know, it's a fairly dangerous sport.
Right, yeah.
But it was really fun to kind of watch that. And I know I talked about Sansa before. I'm pretty sure that was a body double of Sansa riding off the East Road with Littlefinger.
Interesting.
Because she's that girl, whoever that girl is a very good rider.
Oh, nice. So it fits the character perfectly. Sansa, like, prim and, like, you know, proper.
Knows how to properly ride a horse. She's sitting, like, her posture's
very
perfect.
Erect, and
But I know, I read an article somewhere, Sansa always hated the horse scenes because she was either allergic to the horses or to the hay.
Oh, Sophie Turner?
Sophie Turner, yeah. So I'm pretty sure that Sophie Turner isn't the one actually galloping away in that scene.
Right.
I'm sure she knows how to ride enough to, like, you know, when they walk up the hill to look over at Moat Cailin, like, that's her riding the horse, but they're only walking, you know. Although she still does look like she has a good seat in that scene as well. So, again, you know, my obsession with horses. This is a fun one, like Pod.
Oh yeah, that was so
getting
funny.
Bucked off.
Bucked off.
Or reared off, I guess I should say.
Yeah, buck off.
That is the scariest way to fall off a horse. I've fallen off a couple of times that way. I've had horses fall back because they can fall backwards when they do that.
Oh yeah,
and they can fall on you, and that's happened to me a couple of times.
The horse has fallen on you?
Oh yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of like learn to
flatten
roll.
yourself.
you know when they're gonna topple over. My horse used to rear like that all the time because she was just kind of a bitch. And she just didn't like to do what I was asking her to do. So she would rear up and I would grab her neck to hold on. But sometimes she would go so high, she would start to you start feeling a little weightless. And once you get that kind of feeling, just to kind of jump off to the side because you know that they're going over.
Classic.
Yeah.
So Pod gets thrown off like that, and then he stumbles back into the trail without any type of weapons or anything, and the guy rides up on him and he throws a rock at him, which the guy just sort of leans to the side.
That means you're unarmed.
Easily misses him. Yeah. So the guy's about to attack, and then Brienne is duck Pod, and just fucking slashes that guy. And then the second dude comes up, and they start sword fighting, and with a backhand kind of swing, she just fucking slashes right through the other guy's sword. That Valyrian steel Oathkeeper is so sharp, just cut right through this guy's blade, and she just fucking nails him in the neck, and then jabs.
Oh, I didn't even notice that it cut through the blade.
Oh man, yeah,
that's crazy. I have to go watch that again.
Yeah.
Holy shit. I thought he just got stabbed in the neck. It didn't even register that it went through iron.
It's the swing right before she stabs him through the neck. She cuts right through his blade and down into his shoulder, armor and stuff. And then she thrusts the tip right through the back of his fucking neck.
Shit.
But
That's awesome.
that blade cuts like butter right through that other guy's blade, which just... His reach is then useless. He can't hit her. It's just he's defenseless at that point. And she just finishes him off with a nice thrust. Oh man,
I love when
intense.
she yells at him, "Get down, Pod!" And he ducks.
Yeah. And then
she's such a badass in this.
Yeah. And then Pod is just sitting there crouched still, shell shocked after Brienne destroys these two guys. Yeah. Yes, my lady.
You can get up now, or you can stand now.
Yes, my lady.
Yes, my lady.
And then Pod is shook, basically. He's Sansa, asking what happened. Wary of strangers, as she should be. I saw her riding on the east road with Littlefinger. We'll follow them. And he's now, all wary of the danger of the situation there. And he's well... Since both Stark girls refused you, maybe you're released for your vow. Can we go home? Zoinks, Scoob,
I just want to pour wine for Tyrion again.
Yeah. And she's I swore to that mother I would protect those girls. Well, they don't want your protection, Scoob. You don't think... And she's you think they're safe with Littlefinger? No, my lady. Get your horse. Yeah. She's just commanding the scene. And she's fucking steadfast like Mance, she's on a mission and she's gonna follow through. And it's fucking epic, super epic. So yeah, badass Brienne. Love that scene.
She is. Gwendolyn Christie, she is so powerful and strong. She herself is just kind of a badass for being able to ride that horse and wield that sword and act all at the same time, multitasking.
Totally. Yeah,
for sure.
It's awesome. She's cool too. I met her one time.
Nice.
She's really nice.
She seems cool.
So that wraps up my number 4. How about your numero 3?
My numero 3 is The Titans Hello.
Ooh.
And so we see Bravos again.
Yes.
And I love the Bravos-y captain with Arya. Arya's face, looking at the Titan, there's definitely a little bit of awe and fear looking at that statue. And the captain comes over to Arya and kind of tells the story of the Titan, that he would wade into the sea and smash his enemies.
So cool.
Yeah, and so she's just kind of listening and looking up, and it's his horn blows. And she grabs Needle and, you know, the guy goes, he's just a statue.
It's just a statue.
Don't be afraid. He's just announcing our arrival. And she goes, I'm not afraid. And it echoed back for me to Serial Pharrell. Like, you know, I think in the books it's played out more like this, the stuff that she repeats when she's getting her lessons from him, like quiet as a cat, still as a shadow.
Definitely.
And when not today. It just, for some reason, it just kind of harkened back. Maybe it's because Syria was from Bravos.
Probably.
So it just kind of reminded me back to her sentiment with that. But
I like the legend of the Titan becoming, coming to life and smashing his enemies and stuff. It's cool. It's like hints of like a advanced super civilization in the past, or it kind of reminds me of like real life things like the legend of Easter Island, how the giant statues, the Moai, allegedly walked themselves into position powered by mana, stuff like that, where like ancient really statues are moving themselves and stuff. And it's totally based on the Colossus of Rhodes, which we talked about last week.
Big time.
So cool. Just love it.
Yeah, so this scene, even more so than the first time we see Bravos, you really get a beautiful aerial view of the harbor and the bay and the city behind it, and just how big that statue is. I mean, it is massive.
Yeah. We should probably say it like sort of mindful of the Statue of Liberty also. It's worth mentioning.
Yeah, for sure. With his arm up, and instead of a
torch,
he has
like
a broken sword in his hand. Imagine how long that sword was.
Yeah, before it broke.
I wonder how it broke, or if it was. I'm sure it was a full sword.
Yeah, maybe a dragon like flew by or something.
Ooh, yeah.
Who knows?
I like that.
That'd be a cool episode of that story. That spin-off series about like random bottle episodes happening all over the place. Get to see how the Titan lost his sword or something. Yeah,
that'd be so cool. So they're floating down kind of the canals, and it really gave me like the vibe of Venice.
Yeah, totally.
With the canals, and then at the same time it reminded me of like there was some Asian influence in there with like the straw hats.
Yeah, like the rice like this, those hats, like Raiden wins,
like they're kind of conical, like wide conical hats that you see.
There was a cool shot where the camera was inside of like a little like sewer tunnel or something like that, and you heard like the natural sound of the water, like
as they floated by.
Yeah, it was a really cool shot. Some really good shots in this.
Yeah, it was very, very good cinematography in this scene. And so is the House of Black and White on an island, or is it attached?
I think I'm not really sure. It's cool looking though, wherever it is.
It was for me,
like a little peninsula or something.
Yeah, I got the vibe that it was like separate from isolated. The mainland.
Yeah.
Whether it be on an island or like you just said, like a small peninsula where there's nothing kind of around it.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I noticed that there were no windows.
Right.
Which is kind of creepy.
Yeah, there's a building like that in New York City where like the NSA is headquartered or something like that. Like there's just no windows. And, super creepy.
Oh, crazy. That would kind of wig me out. But yeah, so the captain says, the House of Black and White, where you will find the man you seek. And Arya, goes, thank you for bringing me here. And the captain goes, any man of Bravos would have done the same.
Right.
Valar Mogules. And I think this is the first time we've heard Arya say Valar Dohaeris.
Yeah, maybe.
And they do like the little two finger on the forehead, which is cute. So I noticed that Arya knocks on the white side of the door.
Oh, I thought it opened before she could even knock.
No.
Interesting.
So she knocks twice. And she knocks on the white side of the door, and then she knocks a second time because no one answers, and the faceless man, or what we know as Jaqen H'ghar, opens the black side of the door. And later in the episode, when she actually enters the House of Black and White, she enters through the black side of the door.
Interesting.
So I just thought that was kind of interesting, because when he later on in this scene, the black side opens, she asks if Jaqen H'ghar is there. No one here by that name. Right.
And is he saying no one is here by that name? Or is he saying, oh, no one here goes by that name? No one. The guy down in that room over there.
Yeah. And so she goes, please, I have nowhere else to go. And he goes, you have everywhere else to go. When she turns and sits on the steps, and she's like kind of thinking about what to do, when she stands up, half her body is in the white side and half her body is in the black side. She's like completely symmetrical in the door.
An image of duality.
Yeah. So I just kind of liked that. I don't know if I should like read into more of like why she was able to go in through the black door and why she knocked on the white door, and that's maybe why she couldn't get in right away. That he didn't let her in right away. I don't know. It just caught my attention. And
yeah, it's interesting. Lots of symbolism in the House of Black and White for sure.
Yeah, it took me a while watching the series several times to kind of get a grip on what the hell it was about, to be honest. This is probably the most complex storyline for me to kind of unwrap in my mind.
Right.
And so she's sitting on the steps,
like Fight Club style, right? For days.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of metaphors. There's a lot of symbols. There's a lot of kind of reading between the lines. Like, for the longest time, I couldn't understand why the fuck they were slapping her hand when she was telling the truth. And it all of a sudden clicked to me. I'm like, oh, because they want her to lie and make it sound true. So it took me
right.
a few times with this. I know, maybe I'm dense, but it just took me a little while to figure the storyline out. And I didn't really like this storyline at first because of that. But now that I understand it more, it's actually one of my favorite storylines.
Nice. Yeah, it's a good one. Just wait till you get there in the books. Pretty interesting.
Oh, I can't wait. Yeah.
I thought it was funny how she waits outside. It looks like for days, like it's raining at one point, and then it's back to normal.
And all she is reciting her list.
Right. It reminded me of Fight Club, where the guy, Bob, or one of the guys, I can't remember, was it Bob has bitch tits? Somebody goes to wait, like they knock on the door, they get rejected from the club or whatever, and he goes to walk away, and Tyler Durden comes out, and he's like, no, you just gotta stand outside and wait for a while, like...
Yeah.
For a few days, and then finally it gets admitted. So it just made me think of that scene from Fight Club as she's waiting out there, but she ends up saying "fuck it" and throws the coin in the river, basically, and dips. And there's another really cool camera shot there where the camera is on a boat in the water, and it's like going up and down with the waves, whereas the shore is stationary. And it's the only shot like that in the series that I remember, and so I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, we get kind of two shots like that. One, like you said earlier, in that little canal facing out.
Right.
And then this one that you're talking about right now.
Yeah, those two shots kind of stuck out to me. They're cool.
Yeah, so we hear her list again, which is Cersei, Walder Frey, The Mountain, and Meryn Trant.
Right. No Hound.
No Hound. Joffrey's... Joffrey's not on there anymore because Joffrey's dead. So maybe we could speculate and say he was already off her list, or he's off her list now because she assumed he died.
Right. And the next time we see her, I think that it's kind of clear to me that he's off her list because she took him off the list. And what makes it clear to me is that those guys come up to her and they're trying to steal her stuff.
Her pigeon?
Yeah.
Or her sword.
Oh, both. So yeah, the guys come up to her and they're like, "What you got there?" And she pulls out the sword. "Oh, that's a nice little sword." worth 100 pigeons, a sword like that. And she has a line where she's basically just emulating the Hound. Obviously, from this line, he's had a great influence on her. And she basically responds just the way the Hound would have. Nothing's worth anything to a dead man.
Yes, I loved that.
Except Arya sang it. And I was like, oh man, like she's literally emulating him, you know. And at this point it's kind of clear that she fucking like ended up liking and admiring the Hound, at least subconsciously.
Yeah, she goes, turn around and go.
Right.
Turn around and go.
Yeah, that's a nice little sword.
They totally freaked when they saw the faceless men too.
Yeah, like,
man
oh shit.
too.
Oh, that line though, nothing's worth anything to a dead man, you know. It reminded me of the Hound's line, dead mice don't squeak.
Yeah.
Similar sentiment.
Yeah, and also the Hound stealing the silver from that guy because he's going to be dead and dead men don't need silver.
Right. Yeah.
So she definitely learned that from the Hound.
Yeah, totally. I felt like she, like the actress Maisie Williams, I feel like she was doing almost like a Hound impression for that line to like really sell that this was something that she picked up from Sandor.
Totally.
Which is cool. So then, yeah, they run off real fast when they see the old man appear.
Yeah. So that was actually kind of the end of my number 3.
Right. Yeah, number 3, I think.
Yeah.
So he brings her back to the House of Black and White. And she's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, why were they scared of you? And he pulls out the coin again. You lost this. And she's like, how the fuck did you get that? You know? And then he peels his face off and it's Jaqen. Yes. You know, and she's like, oh my God, like you said there was no Jaqen Hagar here. And he's like, there isn't.
A man is not Jaqen
Yeah.
Hagar.
So she's like, who are you then? He's like, no one. And that is who a girl must become.
Yeah. And then they walk through the black door.
Yeah, exactly. Epic. So it's the next level of her identity crisis, you know?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great scene.
Yep. Definitely. So that was the end of your number 3, right?
Yep. What is your number 3?
My number 3 is Dany learns the truth.
Okay.
So Dario is walking with Grey Worm, and they go into this house trying to find the Sons of the Harpy. And there's an interesting line as we learn that Grey Worm fears nothing. And Dario's like, that's the fucking problem. Like, you need to know fear because it'll help you understand other things, right? Like hiding. You don't know how, you wouldn't think of how to hide because you would never hide, basically.
Someone who has forgotten to fear has forgotten how to hide.
Right. Fear is useful that way. And then Dario just like fucking stabs right into the wall and just I don't know how he knew exactly where the guy would be in the wall. But it was impressive.
Maybe he didn't really know, or maybe he heard rustling or noticed something in the wall. Or maybe he just took kind of like a stab out of thin air and was just going to go around and start stabbing walls and just got lucky with the first strike.
Yeah, I don't know. It was precision strike. So Grey Worm's like, damn, that was fucking hardcore. And they find the harpy mask, etc.
And that whisper music playing in the background.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's really good. And
that's a great one in the live experience.
Oh, nice.
I'm not going to give it away, but it's kind of freaky.
Game of Thrones in concert.
Yeah. It's really freaky.
So we now have a prisoner, a harpy prisoner, and Dany has to decide what to do with him, right? Kill him, give him a trial. What the hell is she going to do? And this is a major turning point for her learning, trying to figure out her philosophy, but she fucks it up in the end anyway, unfortunately. So she's not really sure. All they understand is blood, etc. She's getting advice from all these people, and Barristan is like, yeah,
you should exercise restraint. We have, Hisdar and what's the slave's name? Not Massimo, but Mosador.
I'm not really sure, actually.
I think it's like Mosador or something like that. So they're kind of arguing back and forth. You know, the masters don't want to do things, so they basically pay. I think he says pay poor men to do it. Something like that.
Yeah. So, yeah, she's getting all this conflicting counsel, and then Barristan steps up, and he's like, Your Grace, a word, please. You know, I beg you. About what? About your father, the Mad King. The Mad King. You're here to remind me of my enemy's lies, you know. Consider me reminded. So we kind of learn that Dany doesn't know the truth about her father. And we haven't really heard, as the audience, until this point, like, we haven't really heard too much about the Mad King either. So this is a good moment for us and for Dany as we both get expanded information about Ares. So he's like, listen, Your Grace, I served in his king's guard, you know, I was at his side from the first. Your enemies did not lie. And so Daario was wrong, because apparently Barristan also is not afraid to tell Dany the truth.
Yep.
So about time, some real perspective on things. Barristan is super valuable for Dany to have at her side, helping her with stuff like this.
Yeah, and she trusts him because she says, go on. So he says to her, your enemies did not lie. When the people rose and revolted, he set them aflame, killed sons in front of their fathers, burned men alive with wildfire, and laughed as they screamed.
Super fucked up.
I was wondering if maybe he was talking about Brandon Stark, because didn't he do that to Brandon Stark? Didn't he set him on fire and laugh?
Yeah, and Rickard Stark. Well, Rickard Stark was strung up in the sept, or in the throne room, in his armor, and kind of roasted alive with a fire underneath. And Brandon they put his sword just out of his reach, and put like a garrote thing around his neck that would tighten as he struggled, and he basically strangled himself to death trying to reach his sword so he could save his father from roasting alive in his armor.
Oh, okay, that's what it was. So she says, I'm not my father, and he goes, no, thank the gods.
Thank the gods. That was ballsy to say, and that sentence really cemented to Dany, I think, how, like, crazy her dad was. He's like, you know, he served him, and he's like, fuck, I'm so glad you're not him.
Yeah. He goes, but the Mad King gave his enemies the justice he thought they deserved, and each time it made him feel more powerful and right until the very end.
Right, that's so crazy.
Yeah, and so this kind of solidifies to Dany, like, I need to practice a little bit of restraint here, and, you know, I'm not going to execute the master without giving him a fair trial.
Right, which is the right decision.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
Have a justice system, you know?
Yeah.
All right. So that pretty much wraps up my number 3. What about your number 2?
My number 2 was Brienne and Sansa, and we pretty much covered all of that. I don't think I have any more notes on that.
All right. Sounds good. So
what's your number 2?
My number 2 is the WWF Small Council, or WWE, I guess. Because it's drama in the small council room.
Oh, with Kevin?
Yeah, everybody's making power plays.
This is my number 1.
All right. Perfect. So
I labeled it the Queen Mother.
Nice. Yeah, Cersei rolls in with Qyburn, and we're surprised as Qyburn is given a seat at the small table.
Yes.
Which is pretty crazy.
He is now the Master of Whispers.
Yes. I guess a split second before that, actually, we get the dwarf head tossed on a table.
Oh, yeah.
Which is pretty interesting. Yeah. It's a great transition from Tyrion talking to Varys about how there's a contract out on his head, basically. And then we see it immediately.
The head.
Yeah. Dwarf head inbound, I wrote on my notes. So there's kind of a screwed up moment where the thugs are like, should we kill him? Who is it that has the it's Sir Meryn. He's got the 2 guys there, and he's like, should I throw them in a cell, Cersei? And she's like, no, I don't want to dissuade the other hunters. Mistakes will be made. You know, like, yeah, casual about it. You know, they're gonna kill a bunch of dwarves that aren't the right ones, but I don't want to prevent them from keeping killing the dwarves, because you know, she threw them in jail, then they'd be like, oh god, we don't want to give her the wrong one.
Yeah, for sure. It's a funny scene. And then Qyburn's like, "Can I keep the head?"
Right? Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
a freak.
Total freak.
Yeah.
I wonder what he's going to do with it.
I don't know. I don't really want to know.
Yeah. There's speculation in the books that he uses it for the mountain and his resurrection.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought it was funny in this scene that the small council scene that Cersei goes and sits in the hand of the king's chair, and
Right.
you know, Kevin kind of calls her out on it. He's like, "Since when are you hand of the king?" And she goes, "I know it would be inappropriate for a woman, you know, basically to be a hand. I'm just simply advising my son until he can choose a hand for himself." And Lord Tyrell, the giant boob, you know, "I'll be the hand."
She totally butters him
Which
up here
is
too to
awesome.
manipulate him.
Yes, you know, he's the new master of coin. You know, your skills with money are just unparalleled. And he's like, "Ooh," like tickled pink.
Experience and wisdom. Yeah, so funny.
Yeah.
So easily manipulatable.
And then it pans over to Kevin.
Oh, before
and
that,
he's
though,
like-
Pycelle tries to weasel in. Remember-
Yeah, the camera just flashes,
flashes
at Kevin,
Kevin.
and
Okay.
Kevin just kind of like, he's like looking at Cersei like, "I'm on to you." You know, like, I know this game, like this, you're not this nice of a person.
Totally.
Yeah. So then Pycelle pipes in.
Yep. Your Grace, in the past, on several occasions, the Grand Maester has served as the king's hand, and she just fucking cuts him off immediately. The king's named Qyburn, the new Master of Whisperers. And everybody's
like,
just kind of like, what? Yeah. Everybody's kind of taken aback by that.
Definitely.
Especially Pycelle, who already, we know, hates Qyburn, doesn't trust him. So he's like droning on and on about how he doesn't have the qualifications and everything. And Cersei's like, the only important qualification basically is loyalty. You know, something that the eunuch never had, which is kind of a funny line. He's only loyal to the realm.
Yes. Only loyal to the realm.
And even Kevin is like, what the fuck, basically, here. He's like, I did not return to the capital to serve as your puppet or to watch you stack the small council with sycophants. He says a couple minutes later.
So he then starts talking kind of about like the qualification of loyalty. And Cersei kind of pipes in and she's like, "More than the eunuch ever had."
Yeah. That was pretty funny.
And then Kevin starts kind of, you know, like what you were saying.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's when she tries to enlist Kevin and she starts trying to butter him up. So nobody in the realm better deserves the title of Master of War than you, Uncle.
He's like, "That's nice of you, but I want to hear it from Tommen." You know, and plus he should be here learning what it means to rule. And I thought that was,
right,
you know, very telling. He really should be there.
Totally.
You know, if he's the king, like, so Kevin is on to Cersei that, you know, she's protecting Tommen. She's keeping him away because he's easily influenced. I think she knows that about her son. And we come to see that as well in the series, that he's extremely malleable and that she's going to try to weasel her way into the power seat, which is, frankly, for a lot of the time, the hand of the king, and kind of assume her father's role. And this is when he says to her, "I did not return to the capital to serve as your puppet."
Right, great line.
And this is kind of the first time that anyone's ever kind of gone toe-to-toe with Cersei. Like, everybody in that small council wants to be her bestie.
Right.
And
Remember,
he's like, "I don't want anything to do with you."
Yeah, totally. Remember last episode when she told the Septon to hold everybody back before seeing Tywin so that she could have a moment alone with Tywin and Jaime at his vigil. And I said that it was sort of a test to see if people would listen to her with Tywin gone. Here is the first time where somebody's like, "I'm not putting up with any of your bullshit, Cersei. Tywin's not here. You're not fucking Tywin," you know? And
yeah, you have no place here. You're basically the Queen Mother and nothing more, I think is what he says.
Yeah, that was amazing. Yeah, he says, I do not recognize your authority to dictate what is and what is not my concern. You are the Queen Mother, nothing more. Fucking
And he
great.
asks kind of where Jaime is too, and she's like, it's none of your business as the Master of War.
Right,
And
he's a diplomatic mission, sensitive diplomatic mission.
yeah. It's just true. I mean, it is true.
Yeah, it's
He's
so funny.
going to extract Marcella, but she doesn't want anyone to know that.
Yep, and Kevin is just like G'd up here, like zero fucks given.
Yeah, he's like, fuck you, Cersei. Like,
Yeah.
I until the king, basically he tells her, until the king, not you, needs my services, I will be at Casterly Rock, kind of like where I belong. And he gets up and walks
Yeah.
away, and she's kind of like, fuck.
Fuck. Yeah, that was great. That
Yeah.
pretty much wraps up everything I wanted to say.
Me too.
Nice.
So that was my number one. So what's your number one?
My number one is the Gilly Grayscale connection,
Okay.
which for some reason I felt like I was watching the scene for the first time. Like, I don't know, I just I
really?
completely forgot about it. Yeah, it's hilarious.
So she's learning how to read.
Yeah, and basically you just put Shireen on task to teach any adults that don't know how to read. That's her job, basically. She teaches them
Yeah,
to read and write.
she goes, I taught Davos how to read, and old people are terrible at learning new things.
Yeah.
I loved that.
Yeah, it was funny. And so Gilly's getting a look at the S. You know, it looks like an animal, snake. And Samuel speaks up. Did you know that the youngest Lord Commander in history, Osric Stark, was elected at the age of 10? And Gilly is just like not amused by that. But her reply is really funny. I know S.
S. Yeah.
Oh
And
my God.
then she continues to go, basically saying like Shireen's a great teacher, very patient. I
Yeah.
only said the more time you spent practicing, the faster you'll be able to read. And so she clearly, Sam at some point has tried to teach Gilly how to read, and it didn't go very well.
True, yeah, that's pretty funny.
So now Shireen is teaching her how to read, and she's kind of rubbing it into Sam, like, if you were just a little bit more patient with me.
Right, yeah, she's all like pissed off. She's being super passive aggressive, which is
Yes.
hilarious.
Yes.
So passive
It's a
aggressive.
great comedic moment for her.
And that's when she calls him Ostrich Stark. Oh my God. And we learned that
It's like me calling Ygritte Ingrid.
yeah, same thing. Classic. And we learned that she learned to read at 3, taught by Maester Cresson. Remember Maester Cresson?
Yes, he's the one that tried to poison the Red Woman.
Yeah, in like season 2 premiere, I think. And I think it's the prologue of the second book as well.
It is, yes.
Yeah,
it is.
fucking
Because
love that
honestly, I
scene.
just started the second book, so that's pretty fresh in my mind.
Nice. Isn't that great? That book version of it?
Yeah, it really is. It's
Yeah.
really cool.
It always sticks out in my mind too.
Like her necklace glows.
Pulses.
It actually glows in the episode too.
Nice. Yeah, it's crazy how it like sort of pulses in the books. It's like kind of
Yes. Like her heart is beating.
Yeah. So we basically find out Gilly is asking what happened to Shireen's face. What do you call it south of the wall? And we learn, she says, grayscale. What do you call it in the north, beyond the wall? And she says she doesn't know, but that two of her sisters had it. And I'm like, what the fuck? That's crazy.
Yeah.
They both died.
I wonder how they got it.
Yeah, that's exactly, yeah. How could they have been exposed to it? Because Shireen got it by, there was like a trader that came to port at Dragonstone.
Put a doll in her crib.
Yeah, and Stannis bought the doll, but it had been like contaminated with grayscale.
Cursed or, yeah.
Yeah, so that's all fucked up. So,
and Sam perks up too. He stands up and walks over because he's curious about her story.
yeah, foreshadowing his involvement with Jorah and grayscale in the future, right?
Yep.
So, she's talking about how both of her sisters died, and she asks how Shireen was cured, but she doesn't remember, but she thinks a lot of people came and tried to help when she was a baby, and whatever they did, it went away. So I'm wondering what the hell they did. it could be important.
I think they go into it more in the books.
A little bit,
like all
maybe.
the different stuff that they tried.
Oh yeah, they definitely list off a bunch of things that were tried for sure. Stannis tells Davos about it or something. So she asks, Shireen asks what happened to Gilly's sisters, and we learned that her dad made them move out of the keep and into the hut, and none of us were allowed near them, but they would hear them, especially at night, and they started to sound not like themselves, which is mad creepy. And foreshadows Tyrion and Jorah encountering the Stone Men in the doom of Valyria.
Yes. Oh my God. It's
and
one of my favorite scenes in the series.
Yeah, totally. And how they like sort of don't act human. And I totally forgot about Gilly's sisters having grayscale. Like completely forgot about it. So I was watching it like, oh my God, I don't remember any of this. It's so weird. So she asks if she ever saw them. And apparently she only saw them at the end, and they were all covered with the grayscale, their faces, their arms, and they're acting like animals. It like calcifies your brain or something, and like screws up your brain. So she says, my father had to drag them out to the woods on a rope, and Shireen's like, what did he do with them in the woods? And Gilly's like, fuck, I don't want to have to answer this, And then right at that moment, Selyse comes in and Gilly just kind of like books it out really fast, runs out. So she doesn't have to deal with that. And
she's a wildling.
Yeah, and her mom is like super racist.
Yeah, he executed their king for treason. Killing you would be lashing out at them.
That's a fairly good point.
It is.
Valid suspicion.
Shireen's like, her name's Gilly. She's super nice. Like, I don't think she would do that. And I get chills every time what's her face? What's her name?
Selyse.
Selyse. She goes, you have no idea what people will do. All your books and you still don't know. Right. And to me, that's her telling her daughter, like, I'm going to kill you, basically.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Damn, that's fucked up.
Like,
that's true.
I'm like right in front of your face.
I'm going to fucking kill you. Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
and you still have no clue. Like, the books don't tell you that shit.
Yeah, that's hardcore. I didn't even think about it like that. Goddamn.
Yeah.
And zing, man, Selyse is a bitch.
I know.
Right? Like, goddamn. No mercy.
I can't even imagine. What the fuck?
Yeah, and then Shireena's just standing there left all alone. Like, at the end of the scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's, that wraps up my notes on that, too. But it's just like, goddamn. She's like, her name's Gilly. She's nice. Like, I'm teaching her to read. And Shireen is just so innocent,
I know.
So
she's
pure.
so smart, too.
Yep.
I mean, like, she's intelligent. Like, that's why she reads so much. It's like she's craving knowledge and she's craving to see what the world is like, because even in this scene she makes the point of saying, my mother kept me inside.
Right. Yeah, she's been locked up in a tower, like the typical like trope of a princess, locked in the tower.
For sure.
It's pretty funny. So that wraps up my my number one. Should we move on to notes?
Yeah. What's your first note?
Let's see.
I have the Viper necklace as my kind of first note, if we're going in sequential order.
Yep. Yeah, here we are. Yeah. Viper necklace. Yeah. Take it away.
Yeah. So Cersei's sitting here looking at this creepy kind of box, and Jaime comes in again, is very diplomatic. The queen sent for me. Like, you're still calling yourself the queen, which I found funny because we learned, Kevin, he's like, you're the queen mother. That's like all you are. You're not more. The queen. So again, in a way, Jaime's kind of rubbing it in too. Like, the queen sent for me. Like, right, you're like, not what? The queen. Okay. And so she goes, open it, and he pulls it. And what a cool, like, little contraption that thing is.
Yeah.
And
like, I love stuff like
all
that.
The sides fall open like a flower almost. And there's a snake. And is that a real snake? Like, is that meant to be a real snake? Like, or is it
I'm not sure. I didn't look closely at it. I'll need to take a better look. I couldn't
really tell. Like, I would be curious how if, the person sending that snake to them got it to, like, a dead snake to sit like that. Yeah. So I'm wondering if it's just a statue, but it has the lion necklace in its bangs.
In the jaws of the viper.
And Cersei goes, there are only two like it in the world. The one I'm wearing and the one I gave to Marcella. And Jaime goes, it's a threat. And Cersei's like, duh. Of course it's a threat.
Of course it's a threat. Yeah. Hilarious.
Like, what are you, dense? Of course it's a threat. She's surrounded by people who hate our family. I will burn their cities to the ground if they touch her. So here we go again with Cersei burning shit to the ground.
Lots of talk of burning things to the ground. Our house, their cities now. Yeah, it's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
We are lucky. Like, we're fucking super lucky that Cersei never had dragons.
Oh my God.
Imagine that.
I mean, the more I think about it, like, I know I said this in our last recording, is what if Cersei and Jaime are the Mad King's children?
They really, yeah. I mean, Cersei really acts like kind of like a Targaryen, you know?
I know. And I mean, like, I know the Lannisters are blonde and the Targaryens kind of have more of that, like, silver hair. But if you had a Lannister and a Targaryen, you know, maybe it wouldn't come out as silver because of the blonde, you know? So, I don't know.
The seed is strong.
I'm starting to like that little theory.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Like, it's a rabbit hole that Tyrion kind of resembles a Targaryen in the books, at least, because he has the two different colored eyes. And it was known that deformities were to happen in the Targaryen line due to all the incest that occurred.
Right.
So, like
that
he was
herring.
a dwarf. Yeah, so he's kind of like a little, you know, to make you think one thing, and then all of a sudden we're going to be revealed that what we originally thought was not the case.
Yep. It's entirely possible.
Yeah. So that's all I had for that little scene. It's important because, you know, it starts Jaime's trip to Dorne.
Yeah, and Cersei was just saying last week, like, you're just a man of action, aren't you? You do things without thinking. Look at the results. Look at him, you know? And here she is encouraging him to just do shit without any fucking thinking. Like, this is the dumbest plan ever, to go to Dorne like he's fucking Batman to infiltrate and try to get out Marcella. No, Barristan is Batman, Jaime. You're not fucking Batman. Only Barristan could theoretically do this.
I also forgot to mention, too, like, you know, Cersei's mad that, you know, Jaime's like, well, I'll go, you know, save our daughter. And she goes, you know, you've never been a father to her. And he goes, if I was a father to any of my children, they would be, like, beaten in the streets.
Yeah.
You know, like, what the fuck? You can't be mad at me for that. And
totally.
He goes, I promise to make it better. She goes, you never make anything better. And she's so mean.
Yeah,
to
she's
him.
such a bitch, man. She's the worst.
It's like, I don't know, like, I know he's said this before, like, why have the gods made me love a hateful woman? And it's really true. She's a really hateful person. She's not a very nice person at all.
Yeah, she's
to her brother and her, you know, the person that she's supposedly, like, in love with.
The worst.
But, yeah, I totally forgot to, like, put this stuff in my notes, but I remember, like, Jaime asks, like, do you know where they're keeping her? And Cersei's like, I'm pretty sure she's in the Water Gardens, because when I was talking to Oberyn, that's the last time he saw her. He goes, you know, I'll find her. And he goes, anything else, Your Grace?
Yeah, very formal.
And she goes, you're going to Dorne. What did she say? You're going to Dorne, a one-handed man
alone.
By yourself? Oh, alone. Okay, yeah.
Who said I was going alone?
Yeah, who said I was going alone?
And that reminds me of Varys' line to Tyrion last episode. Right. Who said anything about he?
Yeah, that's true.
Kind of reminded me of that.
So then we meet simple Lawless.
Lawless Stokeworth. So funny.
She's a rambler.
Yeah, it's so, like, Bronn is being pretty nice about it too, you know. He's not being a dick. He's being pretty gentlemanly for the most part, even though he's struggling to pay attention.
Yeah, he's not really paying attention, but he's not, like, annoyed. I don't think he's really necessarily annoyed by it. He's just not listening to her.
Right.
You know, don't they? And he's like, don't they what?
Yeah.
Eat pigeon pie in the Capitol. He's like, I don't fucking know.
Yeah,
sure.
Right.
Why not? So I think he's kind of daydreaming about the Stokeworth castle.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
and well, we won't get the castle. My sister gets it because she's older. And this is so funny because we know that Lawless is pretty simple. It's a little bit more detailed in the books, but you know, and sometimes she pulls my hair when mother isn't looking.
Right.
And I thought that's so funny because she's like a grown-ass woman.
Yeah. You know what I think? I think you're a good person, and your sister is a mean person. And he basically says, karma is going to get her, and she doesn't realize
Meaning,
what he's really saying.
I'm going to push her off her horse.
I'm going to have her killed somehow, which is hilarious.
They always get what's coming to them eventually.
Yeah, one way or another. And he was like kind of admiring the Stokeworth castle or whatever it's called in the background. And he's like, I never thought I'd end up settling down in a place like this. And that's when Wally's just like, you won't. He's like, oh, but I will, you know?
Yeah, you wait and see.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden someone's sitting there and it's Jaime fucking Lannister with something telling him that Lawless will be marrying Sir Willis Bracken. And what the fuck, man? Son of a bitch. Not acceptable to fuck with my boy Bronn like this.
Right.
You know? It's just not cool.
And Lawless is so smitten with Jaime. She's just sitting there like googly-eyed at him. She's like, oh, Jaime Lannister.
Yeah, she's like, oh, the Kingslayer.
And Bronn's like, run along, love. And she's like, fuck you. I want to sit there and Google at him.
Yeah, her smile just like drops.
Yeah.
Poor Lawless.
So he's bribing. So Jaime is bribing Bronn actually the same way Tyrion tries to bribe Bronn into being his champion. You know, like I'll give you a better girl and a better castle.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's exactly what Tyrion says. You know, I'm gonna, you know, rule the North in Sansa's name, and I'll cut you out a really big piece of it. You'll have a really big castle, and I'll get you a better girl to go with it, basically.
Yeah, except in this case, Jaime has also eliminated Bronn's first plan of action. Like, he can no longer refuse the deal and stay with Lawless, you know?
Yep.
So, the bastard. And dude, Bronn's goatee is pretty on point in this scene.
It is. Yeah. He looks very polished.
Yeah, you can tell that he's got some money now.
Yeah, not so much a sellsword.
Exactly. Pretty classic.
Yeah. So he's like, well, where are we going? And Jaime goes as far south as south goes.
Yep, to Dorne.
Is this the first time we see Dorne?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I thought so. I couldn't remember because of the long night in between the hiatus.
Right. Yeah, we have not seen Dorne yet.
Okay,
First we really saw
so.
anything relating to Dorne was when Oberyn showed up
That's
last
right.
season too.
Yeah. I forgot how awesome season 5 is.
Yeah,
this is really like the minutia of the entire the show. The storylines have picked up, they're in motion. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of momentum in this season.
They really accelerated book events for season 5 and 6.
Yeah,
big time. Whereas they spent it was like season 3 and 4 were all just on book 3.
That's crazy.
Something like that. Yeah, basically. So yeah, it's
Ilaria.
She's lurking.
Yeah, Ilaria's peeping.
Yep, peeping hardcore, and she fucking hates Myrcella.
Yeah.
And she basically goes to see Prince Doran, and we get our first glimpse of Arya Hota, who is he's like the chief,
the captain.
The captain of the swords or of the guard at Dorne here at Sunspear. And this guy's fucking cool, man. It's too bad that his character is pretty much like wasted on the show. Like he gets killed off pretty quickly and doesn't really ever get to do anything. Whereas in the books, he's
that axe
pretty
is so
badass.
legit.
Yeah, he has kind of a special relationship with his axe in the in the book. So he like kind of like it's like sleeps right near him, and he just like ritualistically, oils it and sharpens it every day. It's like it's like an extension of his body, basically.
Yeah.
So she's pissed about Oberyn still, and he's like, listen, Oberyn was slain during a trial by combat. That's not murder. What do you want me to do? Go to war? Have the whole fucking country go to war? And she's like, yeah, the whole country would want you to go to war. And I liked his response. Then we're lucky the whole country does not decide, Bunch of freaking idiots, apparently. So the sand snakes are with her. This is the first we've heard of the sand snakes.
Yes.
By that name, at least.
Yes, the sand snakes are with me.
Yeah, Oberyn's bastard daughters. They have the love of their people. They will avenge their father while you sit here in your chair doing nothing.
Let me have her.
Yeah, and she's like, this Lannister girl skips about our water gardens, eating our food, breathing our air. It's like, damn, really? Breathing our air? Like, being possessive over air?
That just goes to show like how much she just despises Marcella.
Right, just because she's a Lannister or like from King's Landing, essentially. It's not her fault. She has nothing to do with Oberyn.
I know, she's an innocent little girl.
Right, so it just shows you how irrational Illaria's motivation is here.
Yeah, and she's like, let me have her. Let me send her, piece by piece to Cersei.
Yeah, one finger at a time. And Oberyn would be so against that.
Yeah.
We do not hurt little girls in Dorne. Remember?
Well, and even Prince Dorian says, we do not mutilate little girls for vengeance. Not here, not while I rule.
Right.
She goes, and how long will that be?
Yeah.
And that's a total foreshadow.
Oh, yeah. She stabs him, too. Right?
Yep. Right in the neck. If I'm not mistaken.
She's the worst too. We get lots of horrible bitches
Pretty
in this
spiteful.
episode. Yeah, we have Selyse, Cersei, and Ellaria in one episode. It's like almost an overload of horrible bitch. You know what I mean?
They're all PMSing all at once.
Yeah, their cycles are synced up. And together it just makes a big, massive wave of horror. Oh, man.
Hormones.
Yeah. Rage, fucking rage.
Fucking rage!
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man. So she storms off, and Arya looks over at Doran and sort of like caresses his long axe, like, should I cut her head off, boss? And he's like, no, not yet. Let's let it play out a little bit, which is just kind of funny. I like that scene. I like basically seeing Arya Hota.
We get to kind of see like the total opposite of Oberyn too in his brother. Like,
right.
Oberyn's a very free spirit.
Similar with their philosophies, though.
Oh, absolutely. Totally similar with their philosophies. But I think being that Oberyn was not the prince and Doran allowed Oberyn to be so free, whereas Doran has his people to worry about.
Right, the weight of responsibility and whatnot.
Yeah, like, I'm not just going to go off killing people. I'm not just going to, kill Marcella and start a war and kill thousands of Dornish because you're pissed off that Oberyn chose to go to this trial by combat and be a champion, and he lost.
Right.
And he died.
He knew what he was doing.
It was his choice. At the end of the day, it was the Lannisters, kind of snafu with a sham trial, but Oberyn chose to take it a step further and not just be a judge, but to be a champion. That was his decision. That wasn't the Lannisters' doing. I don't think that was a part of Tywin's plan at all. In fact, Tywin absolutely didn't want Oberyn to be the champion in that situation.
Yeah, if anything, that would not necessarily stack the odds against the Mountain, but it's like the one person who may have a chance,
Yeah, I mean, it's a skilled fighter over Tyrion, who's a dwarf, and, Oberyn was the only one that stood up and said, I'll be your champion. So if Oberyn hadn't have done that, Tyrion would have had to fight the Mountain himself, and Tywin would have gotten kind of a sick kick out of it.
Oh yeah, a song for the ages.
So Oberyn kind of threw a wrench in Tywin's plan, and so it wasn't really the Lannisters' fault that Oberyn died.
Yeah,
but in
not at
her
all.
mind it is.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah. So the next note that I have is the Master's death.
Yeah. Same here.
So I'm pretty sure his name is Mosador is his name.
Mosador, all right.
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Mosador.
That's her servant guy,
that's the slave.
freedman?
Yeah, that's the slave that goes to the Master to kill him. And the Master says she doesn't belong here. No matter how many of you traitors call her Misa, she is not your mother. And Mosador...
He looks pissed off.
He's like, I am so jonesing for killing you right now. Like,
oh, yeah.
He had this look of, like, anger and excitement and revenge and, like, I'm doing this for the queen, and he was proud to do it.
Yep.
And then we don't actually, see him die, but we see the harpy mask and the Master next to kill the Masters. And then it pans to Dany talking to Mosador. And, he's basically pleading with her. He's like, you wanted the harpy dead, but your hands were tied. I set you free, as you did all of us. Mm-hmm. And Dany's like heartbroken at this point because she's like, fuck, like, what did you just do? Like, you're on my small council because you are a freed man. I want your perspective. You've been from me from like day one, and you completely just disobeyed me. Right.
This guy was a prisoner awaiting trial.
Yeah, you were at the table when I said to all of you that we are going to give him a fair trial, and you go and disobey me. And the law is the law. Like, I'm not the law. The Masters aren't the law. The law is the law.
Right. And that's when he's like,
she's telling him you broke the law. You had no right to do this, essentially.
He had said, you wanted the harpy dead, but your hands were tied. I set you free, as you did for all of us. He was like happy about it. I thought he was doing the right thing. And she's like, once the Masters were the law. And he's like, now you're the law. And she's like, no. The law is the law. And that's when he's like, oh, fuck. And he kind of like,
I'm in trouble.
Yeah. Yep, he didn't really get it. So, like, the fucked up thing, right, is that she's pissed because he executed this guy and he was a prisoner awaiting trial, right? But then she doesn't give him a fucking trial. She just publicly executes him. Right, yeah. Like, what the fuck?
I think because he admitted to it, but I get it. Like, I totally have that in my notes as well. It's like, this man was on trial, but then she executes the slave, like,
right,
with just, like, out hesitation.
Totally. And even though he admitted it, this is where a jury could come in and nullify the charges. Jury nullification. They could say, yeah, he did it, but we think it's justified and we don't think that it deserves to be punished. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's like, the whole point of a jury is to have a consensus where your peers decide if a crime has actually been committed, True
that. So he continues to go on. He goes, I was the first to pick up a knife when Grey Worm came.
That's hardcore.
You should have seen the look on my father's eyes. Like, he was so proud, basically. And he admits that my father died during the fighting. Mm-hmm. And Dany's like, this has nothing to do with it. The Harpy's life was not yours to take.
Yeah, period.
And then that's kind of when they go into, the Masters were the law, now you're the law. And she goes, no, the law is the law. And I just feel for her in this situation because it is a hard decision because he did commit a crime. But I think this is an extremely valuable learning lesson for her. Sadly, she thinks that she's doing the right thing. She thinks that she's serving justice. She's showing the Masters that this law applies to everybody, mm-hmm, whether you're a master or a freed man. And unfortunately, what ends up happening is the masters still dislike her. And the people that call her Misa now feel betrayed because she's killed one of her children, essentially. I mean, they call her Misa.
Right.
So she's walking out of that situation with even more enemies than she had before. And I think it was a big learning lesson for her that being just and the law being the law, it's not going to get you any further with either side. If you're going to start, it's a really sticky situation for her.
Right.
And she felt horrible.
Yeah, she just she fucked up. She should have just had a trial for him as well. You know, if that's the principle that's been violated, is that this guy didn't get his trial, then that means that this guy should get a trial.
He should get a trial.
This new guy. And so this is sort of like Stannis-esque of her, where like he does something good, helps with the rebellion in Astapor and or Marine or wherever it was, Marine, I guess, and so she raises him and raises his status, and then he does something criminal, and she punishes him for it, like, you know, making you a lord for saving us during the siege Davos, but cutting off your fingers for being a smuggler. Basically. You know, it's kind of funny.
So we get to what I guess I'll say Mosador's trial, air quotes there. You know, and so she walks up and she goes, "I promised you freedom and justice. One cannot exist without the other." And I love the cinematography in this scene because she's struggling with this. I mean, we have Mosador over in the corner saying, "Misa, please, like, mercy, please."
She can't even look at him.
She can't even look at him. But the way the camera is going is it's going kind of in a circular motion. And it made me feel like her head was spinning. Yeah, like uneasy, chaotic. She's looking over at the masters, and she's looking at Mosador, and then she's looking at her children, and in the background she has Dario, and on the other side of her she has Missandei, and his Dar is back there, and Barristan's back there, and they're all looking at her, and the way the camera's moving, it gave me the impression like they were trying to show like her head spinning. Yeah, like she doesn't know what to do, like she's insecure. I didn't realize it at the time, but that makes perfect sense. Yeah, and everyone's kind of waiting for her to make this decision, and you know, she does look at him as he's closing his eyes and praying, and the look on her face, it's so pained because she, you know, really liked this guy, and the nod that she gives Dario, and Dario doesn't want to do it. You can just tell. He's just like, fuck, man, like for real, this is not a good idea. And so when his head gets lopped off, like, she shudders, and then we get the hissing. So fucked up. Oh, and she's like, what the fuck? Yeah, she's like, I didn't know about this shit. We need to get the hell out of here. Yep. They sort of create a phalanx type of thing with all their shields creating like a big shell. Yeah, that was really cool. Yeah, totally. Man, yeah, what a crazy scene. I probably didn't realize that the camera motion because I kept pausing it to try to write down the High Valyrian translations. Yeah, I did the same thing, but then I watched it again because when the scenes come to take notes on, like with the subtitles, I have to pause it. So what I do is I pause it, take my notes, and then I rewind the scene and watch it. Oh, nice. Without taking notes, so I can visually see what's going on. Good plan. Because if I'm constantly like looking down, I'm missing what they're doing. So on those scenes, I actually watched those twice. Nice. So yeah, it's the first time I've ever noticed like the cinematography, and it gives you kind of like that feeling of dizziness. And yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool. I mean, it's not super fast, but it's the camera is constantly in motion around her. You get shots of her from the back, shots of her face, shots of, you know, the side to side, and it's very fluid, very smooth. It's awesome. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, so then we get back up into the pyramid, and, you know, Grey Worm or Barristan, I think, is the one that says, you know, I'll be on guard tonight. And I think it's Grey Worm that says we all guard tonight. Like, this is not a good situation. There's basically like a fucking riot going on downstairs. And like, she's not going to be left with just one person. And she goes, leave me. And I think this is where we get Drogon, which is an amazing image. But
so good.
I think he sensed she needed him.
Just like at Daznak's pit.
I think they have some type of telepathy going on, because he's been gone for weeks, if not months at this point. And why would he come back the day that she's feeling the worst?
Right.
I mean, she's probably feeling pretty shitty right now. Like,
totally.
I thought I was doing the right thing.
She was so excited to see him too.
Oh, she's Drogon. And he's like kind of purring at her in his little, I don't know what, I guess scales. They're like, like twittering, and, you know, like he's smelling her. I love the CGI of these dragons. They are so lifelike.
Yeah.
The way he's breathing, and his nostrils are opening and closing, and his eyes are blinking.
And as he gets lower and lower and closer to her, his head just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and he's fucking huge.
I know, he's so big. It's so awesome. I love it.
Yeah, all the tiny little details too.
And she goes to pet him, and, you know, he sniffs her and just flies off in his wingspan. Oh my goodness, he's massive.
The winged shadow.
A winged shadow. Yes. So that's such a heartbreaking scene, because he came to her and then he saw that, you know, she was okay, and he just flew back off because he's a teenager and independent. Riding
on his wings into the night.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fuck yeah.
So I think that's all the notes I had, actually.
Yeah, same here. That brings me to the end as well.
Cool.
Yeah, so stick with us, guys. We'll be right back after a short break. That's Alone by producer Pold out of Poland. Check him out, P-O-L-D. Look him up on SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, Spotify. He's got good stuff. I've used it on a couple episodes now, so check him out. And we're back with news about Game of Thrones. From winteriscoming.net, Gwendolyn Christie, you're going to need therapy after Game of Thrones Season 8 by Corey Smith. Walking the red carpet for the premiere of her new film, Welcome to Marwyn, Game of Thrones star Gwendolyn Christie, Bran of Tarth, discussed the show's upcoming final season with E! News, hinting that fans may want to make sure their mental health care coverage is up to date. Quote, you're going to need therapy, Christie said. I just think the show ending is going to send all of the world into professional help.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. While Christie obviously didn't confirm or deny anything specific about the final 6 episodes, she did say she was planning to rewatch the whole series from front to back, something a lot of fans are probably thinking about doing right now. Hey, like us, we're doing a series rewatch. I think it's going to make me incredibly emotional. We're all emotional about the fact that this is the end. And this is the end of something incredibly significant for all of us. And it's been a truly incredible thing to be a part of, she said.
That's crazy.
Yes.
Check your insurance plans out there, people.
Yep. Yeah. Good idea.
From Complex.com, Game of Thrones was Comcast's most streamed show this year despite no new episodes.
That's so hardcore.
Right?
Yeah.
This is by Alex Galbraith. It's official. Game of Thrones is the Adele of big-budget cable fantasy. According to data shared by Comcast, the show pulled a 21 in 2018, managing to be the most streamed show on their on-demand service despite releasing no new episodes.
Oh my God.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's serious.
It's been a solid 16 months since we last saw Jon Snow and Co. Ooh, I like that.
Oh, yeah.
But that didn't stop Comcast's 22 million subscribers from binging the available seasons. The company didn't share exact numbers, but USA Today reports that Thrones was out front. The fact that the show is still ranked number 1 across the board when it wasn't even current is pretty incredible. Yes, I would say so.
Yeah, seriously, that's nuts.
Yeah. It shows just how large of a following that show has and how new people are still discovering it, Comcast VP of Programming Bryn Lev said.
Damn, yeah, that's pretty unbelievable. Good for them.
Yeah, for sure.
It's nuts. From EW.com, George R.R. Martin reveals a look at Game of Thrones' giant ice spiders by James Hibbard. Remember old Nan's words? They swept through cities and kingdoms, riding their dead horses, hunting with their packs of pale spiders as big as hounds. That's from the creepy bedtime tale Bran was told during the first season of Game of Thrones. Wasn't that the pilot episode, too? No, because he was already injured at that point.
No. Yeah, it was the one when right after he wakes up.
Yeah, I love that scene. As old Nan regaled him with stories of the long night when the White Walkers last descended upon Westeros. The ice spiders have never been seen in the HBO show, but author George R.R. Martin unveiled an illustration Thursday of the 2020 Song of Ice and Fire calendar that shows the arachnoid terrors. Arachnoid terrors. That's so
Arachnoid.
Cool. Yeah, it's a great word. And they're much bigger than hounds. It's unclear if the HBO drama will include the spiders during its climactic confrontation between the living and the army of the dead in the upcoming final season, which gets underway in April, but it seems pretty certain White Walkers, the Night King, and an ice dragon will all be involved. And before you say it, yes, Martin is working on finishing the book. He vowed to fans earlier this year that he will complete The Winds of Winter and A Dream of Spring.
By like when? 2030 or 2020?
Yeah, let's expect it sometime around the 26th century. It'll be worth the wait.
Yeah, after he's already died.
He's probably gonna, get some kind of crazy sci-fi treatment and be like a brain on a jar with like little robot legs or something.
Oh my God.
Let's move on to Game of Thrones and history from the Latin language blog, Game of Thrones and Ancient Rome Part 1 by Brittany Britannia. Brittany Britannia. Britannia.
You can go with that.
Daenerys Targaryen versus Boudica. Daenerys Targaryen is highly reminiscent of the strong barbarian queen Boudica. According to historians, Boudica was a capable military leader whose hair is often remarked upon, not unlike Daenerys. She was possessed of greater intelligence than often belongs to women. That she was tall and had hair described as red, reddish-brown, or tawny hanging below her waist. Dio also says she had a harsh voice and piercing glare, and habitually wore a large golden necklace, a many-colored tunic, and a thick cloak fastened by a brooch. Similarly, both women find that the death of their husband, in Boudica's case, and or father, in Daenerys, led to their doom and exile. However, these deaths do not defeat their spirits, but invigorate them to become warriors. For example, Boudica leads an uprising against the Romans, just as Daenerys plans to lead an uprising against those in Westeros. They both seek to take revenge upon those that have wronged them, Westeros and Rome, whilst avenging the injustices inflicted upon themselves. On a side note, it would seem that Boudica's fashion was a point of inspiration for Daenerys as both Khaleesi and the Mother of Dragons. Large necklace, multicolored tunic, etc. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know if I've heard the Boudica comparison before, but I like it.
Yeah, that's cool. Next we have weddings. In ancient Rome, there are various accounts, historic and mythological, that portray the setting of a wedding, but produce death and havoc. Messalina's marriage to Senator Gaius Silius, although she was already married to the emperor, This action resulted in their deaths.
Damn.
Wedding Feast of Pirithos, which resulted in the Battle of Centaurs and Lapiths.
Yeah, probably Lapiths.
Medina's poisoned wedding gifts to Jason's new soon-to-be wife, Glaus, which killed Glaus and Medina's children. Ditto, that's my cat's name, who believes her and Aeneas were married due to their sexual union, kills herself on their wedding night because he leaves her. And while it's not ancient to anyone who didn't know that the Red Wedding, it was based on the Black Dinner. Ooh. I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah, we may have mentioned that a couple episodes ago. I don't remember, though. Next is the Seven and Lord of Light versus the Roman Pantheon and Christianity. In Game of Thrones, religion is a topic that sparks, literally, controversy, allies, and enemies. The faith of the Seven, shown as a seven-pointed star, includes 7 deities. The Iron Islands have the Drowned God, the North has the Old Gods, and the newest addition, the Lord of Light. The similarities between these deities and ancient gods can be seen in every religion, but within ancient Rome, they are as follows. The Father would be Jupiter, representing divine justice and judging the souls of the dead. The Mother, Juno, represents mercy, peace, fertility, and childbirth. She's sometimes referred to as the strength of women. The Maiden, Diana, represents purity, love, and beauty. The Crone, Ceres, represents wisdom and foresight. She is represented carrying a lantern. The Warrior, Mars, represents strength and courage in battle. The Smith, Vulcan, represents creation and craftsmanship. The Stranger, Pluto, represents death and the unknown. It is rarely prayed to. These 7 deities are the most popular in Westeros and reflect the Roman pantheon. The other 2 gods are as follows. The Drowned God, Neptune, represents maritime skills and seafaring ability. The Old Gods of the Forest are the Titans, representing a personal and less structured deity religion than other religions, though some basic social violations are prescribed by it, such as kinslaying, incest, and bastardy. It also upholds the laws of hospitality. The Old Gods seem reminiscent to the idea of the natural order of things. This is why this author says they are symbolic for the nature and primordial Titans, Cronus, Rhea, Oceanus, Themis, Hyperion, and the author would also include Uranus and Gaia. All of these deities are ancient, but within the series become undermined by the upcoming religion of R'hllor. R'hllor, the Lord of Light, Christianity, is a centered belief in the existence of a single all-powerful God. R'hllor, the Lord of Light, the Judeo-Christian God, is the god of fire, which provides light, heat, and life, and struggles against darkness, cold, and death, represented by an opposing deity, the Great Other, the devil, Satan, evil. He's often referred to as the one true God. The following was said of the Lord of Light by George R.R. Martin. The R'hllor religion is strongly influenced by the real-life religion of Zoroastrianism. The central element it borrows is that it is a ditheistic religion. There's one God, one true good God, locked in eternal combat with an evil deity. As part of this dualism, R'hllor, who embodies light, fire, and heat, is opposed on the level of primordial forces by the Great Other, who embodies cold and darkness. You hear that?
What was that?
Sir Matthew of House Repp. As Arya sails under the great Titan of Braavos to meet her unknown future, her sister is doing the same with the man whose grandfather's sigil was the Titan of Braavos, Littlefinger. Good connection. That's cool.
Yeah.
We see the final fate of the poor dwarf mummer that portrayed King Joffrey at the Purple Wedding. Oh, man, I didn't even realize that was the same dwarf. That sucks. Should have run. We get our first introduction to the fierce bear cub Lyanna Mormont as she tells Stannis in no uncertain terms she won't support him. The wretched child or something.
We know no king but the king in the north. His name is Stark.
Cersei is getting no love from Uncle Kevin, and soon enough his son Lancel will bring enough trouble of his own to her. That is true. He's going to be a big problem for Cersei coming up.
Yes, he will be.
Thanks for writing, Matthew.
Yeah, thanks, man. Really great feedback, as always.
Yes.
Lady Lucy of House Jane. I meant to comment on the previous 2 episodes, but I kept forgetting in my mania of trying to do lots of Christmas crafting. You probably worked this out, but Hot Pie told Brienne and Pod that he last saw Arya with the Hound and the Brotherhood. Oh, yeah, because we were trying to figure that out.
Right, yeah, how she
they
knew
knew
it was Arya, right. Good call, Lady Lucy. Thank you for reminding us.
Yes, thank you. So, which is how she knew that it was Arya. I felt that Stannis was respecting the fact that Jon had beaten back the wildlings when he asked what he wanted to do with Mance.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely. I felt it was a way of respecting him, and I don't think Jaime wanted to say goodbye to Tyrion. I think he was dashing off because he couldn't face it as a person who does this exact same thing. I think this is why he didn't say goodbye until Tyrion mentioned it. Yeah, for sure.
Just need to go. It's too hard. Yeah, that
in
makes
this
sense.
episode, the main things that resonate with me are Jon's dream of being dangled before him, which he knows he can't accept as it would dishonor him, and therefore the Stark's name. His face when Stannis offers him his name is heartbreaking.
Yep.
Definitely. Good feedback.
Lord Johnny of House Store, referring to the Titan, says, always wondered, is he wearing underwear or hairy balls?
Oh.
I'm betting on the hairy balls.
Hairy balls for sure.
Sir Cody of House Christian. Hello, fellow Throners. Sir Cody of House Christian here to speak on the happenings of Season 5, Episode 2, The House of Black and White. The moment in this episode that stood out to me the most was when Daenerys was talking to Barristan and he mentioned the Mad King. She was immediately offended and still operating under the assumption that it was lies of her enemies. When he went on to explain that it was true, she was so quick to back down on that and state, I'm not my father. All the intense dragon music and her deciding she would not be like her father and give the son of a harpy a fair trial would make you think she was taming her inner dragon. But we know she goes on to kill the man who took it upon himself to kill the son of the harpy. Could this possibly be foreshadowing her and Cersei becoming mad queens? Do we even have time left for that with just 6 episodes? Or was it just to show her occasional lack of proper judgment? This seems like a huge moment. Dany learning the truth of the Mad King, and it feels a tad glossed over. Let me know what you think and keep up the great work. Always looking forward to hearing your take. Valar Morghulis. Valar Doharius. Nice to hear from you, Sir Cody. Thanks for writing in. That would be crazy if both she and Daenerys went crazy and went all Mad Queen. I think that it's probably just one of her more like intense moments showing that she has the potential. But I think that being surrounded with good advisors like Tyrion and with the influence of Jon, it'll help her really find her center and avoid slipping into the fate that the type of fate that the Mad King's genetics could potentially give her. So I think that she's going to be tempered largely and end up being more of a force for good than chaos or evil. Thanks for writing, man. Good feedback. All right, that's our show, episode 84. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yes, thank you guys so much.
Next episode, we'll be covering Season 5, Episode 3, High Sparrow. Give it a watch and send us your thoughts. We'd love to read them on air. Christmas is coming. This year, for your online holiday shopping, just go to gameofmicrophones.com and click on our link to Amazon. As an Amazon associate, we earn from qualifying purchases. If you'd like to donate or subscribe to support us, you can go to paypal.me/GOMpodcast and patreon.com/GOMpodcast to donate an amount of your choosing. There are links to both at gameofmicrophones.com.
Any contribution you make definitely helps, and you can help secure the continued existence of GOM.
We'd like to thank our patrons, Sir Matthew of House Repp, Lady Lucy of House Roberts, and Lady Candace of House Tews. Lord Jeff of House Allen, Sirenicide, and Luke, the Low Duke. We love you guys and appreciate your patronage.
We're also working on putting together some more interesting incentives for supporting the show. Let us know what you would want. If you have any cool ideas, we are really interested in hearing about them.
Yes. And we also want to give a huge thanks to Lady Lisa of House Sky, Pie Romancer. She's been key behind the scenes working to get gameofmicrophones.com up and running. And she's also a world-class artist. So check out her amazingly illustrated children's book, The People You May See, available now on Amazon.
Yes, it's beautiful.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. If you'd like to call, you can always call us at 813-JOFFREY. That's 813-563-3739.
If you would like to write in, you can email us at ravens@gameofmicrophones.com.
Check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/GOM podcast. And please give us a like on Facebook and a rating or review. And also make sure to give us a review on iTunes to help bump us back into the search results for Game of Thrones. We would appreciate it.
Imp slap! You can also listen to Game of Microphones on YouTube, BitChute, and Steemit. Just search for Game of Microphones to find our channel. We can't create a custom URL on YouTube until we have 100 subscribers, so please subscribe as well. Likes, comments, and shares are also appreciated.
We're also on Twitter, Instagram, Gab, and Minds at GOM Podcast.
And we're on Tumblr too, at Game of Microphones.
All right, that's our show.
Thanks for listening.
He murdered sons in front of their fathers. He burned men alive with wildfire and laughed as they screamed. And his efforts to stamp out dissent led to rebellion that killed every Targaryen except 2.
I'm not my father.
No, Your Grace. Thank the gods.
Oh my god. That was awesome.
Where do whores go? And they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's pretty funny.
Yeah, absolutely.
If your whole system of ruling is already based on love, which hers has been, you know, freeing people, saving people, etc., start to try to incorporate fear, and they're like, what the fuck is this all about? You know?
They'll start hissing at you, basically.
Yeah, totally.
We discover that it's the 998th selection of the Lord Commander. So that's a lot of Lord Commanders over the years.
Yeah, it's a fuck ton. I also thought it was hilarious how Gilly called him Ostrich Stark.
Yeah. Totally. Okay.
Sloth Rachel is kind of funny, though. So.
Sloth Rachel is kind of funny. Yeah, her name is Gilly. You know her quite well. I found him there after the battle in a puddle of his own making.
So classic. He just rocked that scene. Think about it. It's a Targaryen voting for another Targaryen.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even think about that. That's so awesome.
I just realized it right now.
That's awesome. Everyone like jumps up and cheers, like, Jon Snow, Jon Snow. And I'm like, yeah, he won. A man is not Jack in the Bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she trusts him because she says, go on. You know, like, I think he was a little bit nervous to save. Duncan. Duncan.
And fucking fuck. Yeah, that was so ridiculous.
The sound it made did not sound good.
I know. I went back and listened to it.
It was like, like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, probably dead. Rage, fucking rage.
Fucking rage!
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Same here.
And then we get the hissing.
So fucked up.
Oh, and she's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, she's like, I didn't know about this shit.